was with me in New England. He was a man who, showed me the road, taught me the right way to work, particularly, just exercising and taking care of my body. And Greeny, you never come across a kind of more humble man than you would with Markus Paul. Just the lessons that he gave me, during the weight room and because he played briefly in the National Football League, and to be able to pass that on to me, to a young man that was just starting out his career in the National Football League, for me, I'm forever indebted to Markus Paul, and my thoughts and prayers goes out to his family and to everyone that knew Markus Paul.
The outpouring of emotion from across the world of football has been really notable and extraordinary for the last few days. And so the Cowboys, again, they will play their game today. They will play it with heavy hearts. And D. Wood, thank you for taking a moment there to remember your friend. And again, we will mention the game is being played today. And so let's take a look at the game, which does have extraordinary implications in this division, where all the teams have struggled, but someone will win and make the playoffs. With a win, both teams would give themselves a 25% chance or better to win this division. A loss for either would really impact their chances of making the playoffs. Again, the winner of this game will be in first place in the division heading into the weekend. And so as we look at this as a football game, Dominique, watching the Cowboys play this past week against Minnesota, I thought to myself, that's a team we haven't seen all year long. They just looked different. Why? What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, they got some stops on defense. That was the big difference. I think that even back when Dak was healthy, the major issue was them being able to put together some consistent defensive plays. And they weren't outstanding. They were just pretty good on defense, which is all you need when you have the playmakers that they have on offense. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to repeat that going into this game, but if they can, then I think they become one of the favorites in that division of mediocre to below average teams. So being able to run the ball helps, especially when you're to take pressure off your defense, and Andy Dalton coming back and finding ways to complete passes to those outstanding playmakers, and then those playmakers making improbable plays. I think that is something that you can't always rely on, but you should be able to get that from week to week every now and then from the Cowboys. So they look a lot better than they've looked in previous games, but I don't trust it, Greeny.
Well, I mean, look, again, to get to 4-7 and first place in the division, you only have to trust them so much. Bart, and we were talking earlier this morning, a lot of this is about the quarterback for you.
Yeah, I mean, when Andy Dalton's at his best, he's a competent quarterback. He's a guy that's above a game manager. But I think, Mike McCarthy finally either got them to buy in by going all Gallagher, and I wonder if he had the face shield on when he was smashing watermelons. But that trick only works once. The problem is, the Redskins the Washington football team comes in this week, and they're bringing in the best pass rush in the past 5 games. Dallas is trying to figure out their offensive line. And if Andy Dalton has to throw the ball more than 30 times, he's going to leave himself vulnerable as they're trying to shuffle out and figure who's going to be the right tackle, the left tackle. I think right now the time is right for Alex Smith. And what a story that would be, Alex Smith coming back and marching his team back to the postseason. He's the best quarterback left in this division, Greeny.
Yeah, they've been an interesting story to follow. Zeke Elliott finally ran for 100 yards last week. They're 25-4 since he got there in games in which he does. Shefty, how about this? What are we hearing coming out of Dallas this week and the way they looked, the tragedy there notwithstanding, and just the football side of it for them?
Well, I think it's all about the emotion of today and how this team basically responds to the events of this week. When you lose somebody that you love so much and care about so much and are asked to play a football game just days later, that is challenging emotionally to do. Now, this has happened to this franchise before. You remember there was a player a decade ago or so that was killed right before a Thanksgiving game. The team responded, came out and played very well. And I think this team will have a lot on its mind. As you mentioned, the heavy hearts that they'll be playing with. And I think there's no way that can't impact the way they play today.
And it's well said, and it will be interesting to see, again, so much more important than anything that happens on the football field today, but it is a very meaningful game in the division. Meanwhile, let's run the hurry up, Shefty, and go through some of the other news around the sport, and let's start with the Texans and their injuries as they get set to play today.
Listen, they've already ruled out 2 wide receivers for today's game. Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills not going to play today. They've been ruled out, and so it'll be up to Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks and Kiki QT, some of the other players, to try to step up in the absence of the injured wide receivers. They are not the only team dealing with injuries today. Of course, the team they'll be playing, the Detroit Lions, has their own injuries right now. Kenny Golladay ruled out today. Danny Amendola ruled out today. And the big question involves their running back, DeAndre Swift. But Golladay with the hip injury, has not played in a little bit of time, had a setback, didn't practice. DeAndre Swift is listed as questionable due to concussion. My understanding is it's unlikely that he's going to play today. We'll get an official ruling here in the next couple hours. We'll see whether he can make it back before the game, but I have a sense that he's going to be down at this point in time. And as for the Chicago Bears, also in the Detroit Lions division, they have yet to name a starting quarterback. Nick Foles did not practice yesterday due to that hip injury. Mitchell Trubisky did practice, and so we'll see how they shake it out this week and what they decide to do. But if Trubisky's practicing on Wednesday and Foles is not, maybe that's the first hint and sign as to what's to come in Chicago as the Bears get ready for a big game against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, Greeny.
Yeah, we will talk a little more about that one later. We actually will play you what Matt Nagy said. And candidly, listening to him, you became far less certain as opposed to being more certain as to who his quarterback would be this weekend. Meanwhile, very big news from college football yesterday. The legendary coach at Alabama, Nick Saban, testing positive for the coronavirus. He is experiencing very mild symptoms and has begun the quarantine process. He will not be available to coach in the Iron Bowl this Saturday against Auburn. Here is Nick Saban yesterday.
I have confidence in our coaches and our players that they'll be able to do what they have to do. I mean, we all got to live with the consequences of what happens, whether I'm standing there or not. So that's something I hope everybody realizes.
All right, so that's Nick Saban. Here are Paul Feinbaum and Heather Dinich. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. And Heather, let me start with you. What more can you tell us about where Alabama goes from here for this game without Saban?
Well, Greeny, they go to offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian. He's going to handle most of the day-to-day head coaching responsibilities in the football building. He'll call the plays on Saturday against Auburn. Nick Saban will be at home as he has been isolating for at least 10 days per CDC guidelines. He'll be participating in team meetings and everything through Zoom, as he did the last time he had a positive test, although last time it was a false positive. This time is for real, so he's had a bit of practice with this, but he's got confidence in Sarkisian, who has been a head coach before.
Now, Paul, we look on the screen there, we see the number. I mean, Alabama's a 3-touchdown favorite and then some. But crazy things happen in rivalry games, and that's what this is, a rivalry game. How do you think his absence impacts this game?
Greeny, I don't think it's going to have a big impact. And yes, this is a rivalry game. This is the Iron Bowl. And remember, Gus Malzahn, the Auburn coach, has won 2 out of the last 3 against Nick Saban. Find someone else who can make that statement, outside of Clemson, South Carolina. But beyond that, they have confidence in Sarkisian. As Heather said, he's been a head coach at Washington, at Southern Cal. They've already been through this drill before. And I think that's the one thing that's helping them. And also, the last time it was against Georgia. And at that point, before we knew Saban was coming back, Alabama had not played that well. Their defense was shaky. The defense has really turned it up many, many steps right now. So there's a much higher degree of confidence going into this game at home.
I think the overwhelming expectation is that Alabama wins the game, and perhaps comfortably. But Heather, in this scenario where Auburn pulls off